Hi, I'm Mike,
Hey, and I'm Mason.
and today we're going to talk to you about technology.
Are we really going to talk technology, Mike? I think we're going to be talking about what folks thinks drives technology. And what is that,
Well,
Mike?
it's technology adjacent. How about that?
All right. All right. Is DevOps and Agile technology adjacent? Well, that kind of hints at what our topic today is. The intersection of Agile and DevOps. Is DevOps Agile? Is Agile DevOps? We know that more and more organizations are not only looking to increase their agile maturity, but they want that zenith, that Shangri-La of CI/CD, the automated pipeline. And while those are great goals, in reality, there is a lot of friction as you go down the DevOps path and you try to make everyone agile. So today, Mike, let's tackle it. I will start us off with some theory, and then I want to hear what's actually happening on the ground, and let's talk about if these things can be resolved. So first, here's a quiz for you, at those of you at home. Are DevOps and Agile business goals? If you think about it. A lot of organizations say, hey, I want to go Agile, I want to be DevOps, but those aren't really business goals. Those are drivers. Your business goals, if you're Starbucks, it's to sell more coffee. If you're a bank, it's to more loans and better customer service. It's not, hey, I want to be more Agile, I want to be more DevOps. So, Mike, DevOps and Agile, goals or frameworks to help us do better at whatever we do or sell?
Well, if you want to go on vacation, do you set your goal to drive a car or do you set your goal to go on vacation? Okay, well, if you set your goal to go on vacation, use the car to get there. DevOps and Agile the same way. You hop into DevOps and Agile, and they take you from where you want to go. But they are not in and of themselves they are not in and of themselves a business plan or a business goal, or really, while they are very impactful to the business, they're not a goal in and of themselves.
Agreed. So, I mean, here's a little bit of theory for those of you listening. Agile is supposed to be an iterative approach, better understanding the customer. You're talking about greater collaboration between business and tech. And then DevOps focuses on continuous testing and delivery. And in essence, a lot of organizations went down the agile path first, decade ago, 2 decades ago. Manifesto comes out. More organizations take time box development. They find the beauty of Scrum. And now, in their next level of maturity, they're looking to go DevOps. Let's bring in the operations people and all of this. So while in theory that sounds amazing, business to development to ops, Mike, what's really happening in a lot of enterprises?
So, a lot of businesses are transitioning from a classic waterfall development production style. The businesses are happy with waterfall. The development teams are not happy with waterfall because at the end you develop something that the customer doesn't use because the customers changed their mind 8 months ago, but you had your project plan, couldn't change. Now, that being said, what ends up happening is there's a lot of friction inside the organizations where management goes, yeah, but I like all the fun, cool, flashy things that comes with doing waterfall because I can project and I can do Gantt charts. Oh my goodness. And so can I hammer that into Agile? And everybody going Agile goes, sure, yeah, totally. Agile is completely malleable. You can do it however you want to do it. And so what ends up happening is that you end up with this awesome concept of Wagile or Agile fall, or so it seems like it's the same thing, only you're being told to deliver more quicker. So it's these two concepts are good for the business. It's delivering faster and delivering more. Those are great for the business. Those may not necessarily be as awesome for the development team if you haven't implemented your agile properly.
Yeah, and so I'm going to use an example of what you're saying. A lot of organizations are like, you know what? Who best to operate something than those who built it? So in theory, you say, okay, you built the system, that team should be operating it. But the reality on the ground is what folks do in both those areas, development operations, can be very different. And the folks running those two areas can have different goals. You could have people who have reached the apex of their career and they want to build and create new amazing things. And people who are working operations and patching might not be there yet. And now you're telling both groups, hey, you guys have to do it all. How best can organizations tackle that? Because I've heard this personally. I've heard my own teams tell me, hey, you're asking me to patch at 3 a.m. on Saturday night. I'm a build engineer.
Yeah, I mean, and that absolutely happens. So what you end up seeing is you end up seeing someone who does front-end web development walking down to IT and going, hey guys, I'm just going to plug in this DHCP server. Is that cool? And bad things can happen when you do that. So the reality is that, you had internally in your organization the distinctions between the development folks and the operations folks. Okay, so what you need to do is, instead of making the development folks do everything, what you need to do is you need to take your operations folks and then you need to commingle them with the development folks so that they can work together to actually create a good solution to doing this patching thing at 3 a.m. So that's
Mike,
not
how do you
on
get
the.
that buy-in? Because there's going to be confrontation. Because if we don't get the overarching goal or idea, if we don't buy into it and say, hey, the reason why you got to go patch at 3 a.m. now is because we want everyone on the team to really understand the product or the application or system and therefore increase quality. What would you do? How would you get folks, as if you're a lead, how are you getting folks to buy in?
So the first thing you need to look at is you need to look at what are ultimately the goals that you're trying to accomplish with something like patching at 3 a.m. So why does patching at 3 a.m. benefit your organization? Why is that a good thing? And why does that have to be done manually? Why can't you just go, hey, okay, we have patching at 3 a.m. Okay, great. Let's create some automated system that handles the patching for us. And if things explode, it just notifies everyone automatically and everybody wakes up and takes care of the issue if it's a problem. But if nothing goes awry, everyone gets a good night's sleep.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing here is increased quality, the product runs better, and there's less issues for everyone. And this that's the whole point of DevOps here. I mean, we're focused on operational and business readiness. And now we're trying to get folks who have been in the Agile world who focus on functional and non-functional readiness to understand each side. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. And traditionally it's not been the case. It's been, hey, the operations folks understand how the operations things work, and the development folks understand how the development things work. And really, they haven't had any interest in understanding how each other's areas are, and they're perfectly happy that way. Everyone is nice, tucked away in their own little silos. So I'm breaking down the silo walls, getting them to work together. It's complicated, but the reality is that as an organization, you don't have to make sure that your developers understand every single small minutia of the process to deploy their application to the server. They just simply don't have to do that. What they have to do is they have to understand the pieces of that affect what they're working on specifically each time they're working on something. And so that's how you have them work together. Okay, so having the team rotate who patches at 3 a.m., that doesn't do anything except for get people out of bed. It frustrates people because now they're forced to do something that they didn't traditionally have to do that doesn't really necessarily affect the things that they're working on a daily basis. So what you do is you get them in there and have them work with the operations folks, and the operations folks work with dev folks to understand where their boundaries are and then learn in each direction coming across.
Right.
That way, you can spread out the knowledge quickly and in a more natural fashion.
So here's the deal. I'm with you on this. But a lot of times, Agilists, Agile coaches, product owners, folks that are in the Agile world, more in the DevOps world, they focus their sprint planning, their PI planning on elements that they're familiar with, that readiness that they're familiar with. Automation is left out. Automation is key to DevOps. Shouldn't automation be included in Agile workflows and planning? I mean, this is how you actually get that common ground, make both sides understand the value of functional readiness, of automation. If everyone understands, you get buy-in and you become smoother. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think that automation should absolutely 100% be included in those planning efforts. And the reason that I say that, and the way that you can easily demonstrate that value, is go look at your completed backlog and then find all the things that you've done in your backlog that are almost the exact same identical task that you've done repeatedly over sprint, over sprint, over sprint. Now, if you can automate that, that removes that from ever having to be in a sprint again because you automated it. Guess what? You just now saved a whole bunch of time in the future, but now it's automated. So taking the time to actually include those types of things is kind of important. And traditionally, businesses have been very averse to doing things like code refactors, for example. Going back and looking at the code that you've already made and making that code better. It's, hey, get it working and then move on to something else. And we'll come back when we can, red never, and we'll fix this problem or we'll make this better, things like that. And so organizations typically don't give the developers time to do things like that, and that's where the automations come in. The automations come in and they help with these small details that can then free the developers up to actually do things like going back in and doing refactoring and making your applications more secure and improving the customer experience and ultimately streamlining your workflow through the entire organization. So
Yep.
making your value streams more valuable.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, I mean, here's what I would say to that. At the end of the day, no organization's picking one or the other. So if you truly want to embrace the ROI, the value of Agile and DevOps, it's key to merge them. And the whole point of merging, or the way you merge these elements, is to teach and collaborate. And so I truly believe that if we're teaching people for the past 10 years, shift left, shift left, shift left, it's time to teach business and development teams that you shift left and right if you bring in ops. Show them the value of it. Show them the value to the product. If the whole notion of agility, DevOps, and automation is from the moment we meet a customer need, or we want to meet a customer need and create a backlog, and we start developing and we put things into operation, the idea here is we do it with a lot less gates and we do it a lot more seamlessly. If that really is what organizations want, then they've got to be able to teach their teams how we can reduce the gates, why we reduce them, why we start working in a cross-functional manner and helping each other with our jobs. You agree with that?
I do. And, if you look at in DevOps, if you look at, say, the 3 ways, for example, the second way is all about amplifying feedback loops. Mm-hmm. So what that means is that amplifies the communication that's made between your operations teams, your development teams, and your business. So by simply engaging in that DevOps practice, you immediately realize gains. Now, the third way being continual experimentation, organizations have to be understanding and have to allow for continual experimentation in order for DevOps to work. So you have to, and everybody uses the term fail fast. Great. If fail fast and then also recover fast, because if you fail fast and then you just simply let it sit there, then that's bad. That's not how that works. But fail fast, recover fast, and continually experiment, because the first way that you choose is not going to be the best way to do something. So experiment, try things that will actually work within your organization and poke at the processes, make them better. And that's where you get overlap with Agile and DevOps, is that, Agile gets you thinking in smaller and smaller increments, and DevOps then takes it one step further and gets you thinking about small increments across the entire system of value.
There it is. And I think that's a good word for us to kind of close this particular conversation down with: value stream. At the end of the day, the value stream is what you're working against or working for. And in that, you're reconciling the gap between the customer need and development and test teams. And then you're bringing in DevOps so that you can address between development, testing, and operations. What are we all doing here? We're creating value. So in all of this, I think a lot of organizations have done a good job addressing that between business and IT. But I think our takeaway for our listeners is you truly want to reduce friction between your Agile framework, your DevOps framework, your folks who've been working in Agile their whole careers. Maybe they've been in IT or business for 5 years. That's all they've known. Or you've got someone who's been working in different frameworks. At the end of the day, to create value, you've got to better educate your teams and educate your enterprise on the overall value from start to finish, all the way through ops, shifting left and right, and then focus on those goals of addressing customer, dev, test to ops to kick out a better product. Did I get that right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, because if you don't know, how are you going to fix it? I mean, to not put too fine a point on it, it's like if you don't understand how the process is supposed to work, how are you going to actually make it work? So education is important. Understanding how things are supposed to work, that's a huge deal. And understanding that DevOps is not just agile with automation added on.
All right. So I will say this, some of what we might have said might have sounded like Captain Obvious speaking, but the reality is a lot of organizations are struggling to move past theory and get their folks to realize and buy into that whole shift. So if there's one takeaway again, think about it. Is your organization, is your team, are you bought into that whole premise of from start business need all the way through ops, everyone's unified in what that value is? If you don't agree with us, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to have information at the end here with our email addresses. Please reach out. If you've done better, heard better, if you think there's a better way of going about this rather than the DevOps Agile approach, please reach out. Thank you for listening today. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, welcome. And thanks for watching us. And yeah, like Mason said, please reach out. We'd love to engage you in conversation because this is a topic that's important to a lot of people in technology right now.